Welcome to the God and Golf podcast, where Jesus is always first. I am your host, Scott Weiss, PGA specialized professional in coaching and teaching, as well as a Christian minister. And I am excited, glad to be with you again today for our third episode. I have to correct myself. I said this would be our second episode, but podcasting world considers that trailer an episode, and so this is number 3. And I am ready to start helping you with your walk with God and also with your golf game. But before I do, I want to spend a little bit of time telling you some things about my golf background. Things that I'm going to share with you are not going to make a difference at all in your golf game or in your walk with God unless you apply them properly. We get a lot of information in the world today, but do we have the practical knowledge to actually apply it? So just going back a few years, I was born in New Iberia, Louisiana. That is the heart of Cajun country. Both my parents spoke French, and so did so many of my ancestors, and many of my cousins and relatives today still speak the Cajun French down in Louisiana. And I was the fourth of 5 children, born to Doug and Peggy down in New Iberia. We moved to Franklin, Louisiana when I was about 8 years old. And I went to high school at a low Catholic high school in Franklin called Hanson Memorial High School. I was always athletic, somewhat. I wasn't the best athlete on the team. I wasn't the greatest athlete, but I never rode the bench either, so I was able to play. I wasn't a great all-star, but I was productive, and we played everything. My dad would help in Little League and Pee Wee football and Biddy basketball, and my brothers and we played basketball, baseball, football, did all the things. I played track, ran track once or twice in high school and junior high, played tennis in high school, those things. And then I went off to LSU in Baton Rouge, graduated high school in 1980, which is before most of you probably listening were born. Wonderful opportunity at LSU to be a student equipment manager for LSU's football team. It was an awesome experience. Traveled all over the nation with the football team, on the inside of a major college football program. Learned so many things, met so many great people. My last 2 years there, I was the head manager and had keys to LSU's football stadium for 2 years. So that was before I knew the Lord, so I could tell you some stories that I'm not too proud about, but some incredible experiences as well. But a lot of my buddies, my other student managers and student trainers and football players, friends of mine, had played golf, and I had only played one time. I knew nothing about the game of golf. My oldest brother invited me to play a round of golf when I was 18 years old, just graduated high school, had never held a golf club, didn't know anything about it. He had started playing a few years earlier. So I went out, let's give this thing a shot. Played a little golf course on the backside of New Iberia, Louisiana. And I told him, I want to keep score. I want to know what's going on, And so he kept score. I shot 168 my first time on the golf course. Penalties, out of bounds, whiffing the thing in any way. What a start. I absolutely hated it. Didn't have any fun. Didn't see what all the hype was about. Didn't touch a club for at least 3 years. About my 3rd, 4th year of college, like I said, my buddies are inviting me to play. I don't know anything about the game. And so I took the PE course at LSU and started learning. And one weekend, I think I had played one time, and I was back in Franklin, Louisiana, visiting with one of my high school classmates, Adam. And his dad had been a member at the country club, a little club outside of Franklin, Louisiana called Bellevue Country Club. And I asked Mr. Perry, I said, Mr. Perry, you still play golf? And he said, I can't believe you asked me that, Scotty. He said, I just put my golf clubs up in the attic. I polished them, put them in the attic, and I'm going to take a break. And I took my old set of golf clubs and I threw them in the garbage can. And I looked at him and I said, the garbage can? He said, yeah, you want them? I said, well, I don't know. So we stood up, walked outside, opened the lid to a big garbage can, pulled a golf bag out that was attached to a pull cart, which the wheels barely turned on, and the bag was mildewed. It was an old red and white vinyl bag, and it had a set of Arnold Palmer blades that had to be 20 years old, and the shafts were full of rust. The grips were those old green Victory dry rotted grips. And Mr. Perry said, just take some fine sandpaper to the shafts and get that rust off of there and put some new grips. You'll have yourself a set of clubs. I was so excited. So my first set of golf clubs came out of a garbage can. and I realized I had no idea how to use them. I knew almost nothing about the game of golf. But I went back to LSU and my buddies, and we started playing, walking the course at LSU. I think we paid $7 and could walk all day long and played 36 holes, many a day, and no clue what I was doing. Of course, you're broke college kids, and there's no time, no money for lessons. I would read Golf Digest. One week, Lee Trevino was telling me how to hook it, and the next week, I was reading another article on how to hook it, and it was completely opposite of what Lee Trevino was saying, and so I really couldn't get. But my friends enjoyed making fun of me. I didn't know what I was doing. I'd shank them. I'd hit them out of bounds. I wanted to play well so bad, but didn't really know what I was doing. But fell in love with it because every now and then you accidentally hit a good shot. But I graduated from LSU and moved down to New Orleans, and I ended up working at a really famous restaurant on Bourbon Street called Galatoire's. And I was working a lot of times, 4 times a week, and on those other days I was playing golf. And one day I read in the Wall Street Journal that 9 out of 10 CEOs lied on their first resume. So one of our customers had left a Wall Street Journal in the restaurant. I picked it up, scanning over it, and it said 9 out of 10 CEOs lied on their first resume. So I had that in the back of my mind. And I found myself one day playing at New Orleans City Park when they had 3 golf courses off of one clubhouse. And this has got to be, late 80s, mid to late 80s. And I probably never came close to shooting 95, but I'm loving it. And, practice doesn't make perfect. Practice makes permanent. If you're not practicing right, you just permanently grooving bad habits, which is what I was doing. But I mean, my hand-eye coordination was developing. I was getting a little bit better and learning how to putt and all those kind of simple things. And I would find myself in a thunderstorm one day. I went inside the pro shop and I asked this guy behind the counter, I said, "What do you do here? What's your position?" He said, "Well, I'm an assistant golf pro." I said, "An assistant golf pro, huh?" I said, "How do you get to be an assistant golf pro?" He said, "Well, you just got to get a job in golf. And then after 6 months, you can enter the apprentice program." Things were different then than they are now. There's a different procedure for becoming a PJ member in that time. And so, but I had just, it really got me thinking. He told me all about the golf business. He told me, what you had to do, the classes you had to take, the playing ability. And that was so far out of my, reach. But I knew that I loved golf. And if I could get around it, I'm sure I could get better, and I could, and I'm kind of floundering around in life. I wasn't working in my college degree career. I was just waiting tables and messing around in New Orleans, which is no place to be without God. And so he told me there was a job opening at Lakewood Country Club. And Lakewood Country Club was the place where the PGA Tour was playing their event in New Orleans. And so I had read that article again about lying, and so that was a good idea. I didn't have the morals I should have. I was not a Christian. So I put my suit on and put my resume together, got a briefcase, drove my truck, and drove out to Lakewood Country Club and met a guy named Palmer Proctor, who was the head pro then, and told Palmer I was a 5 handicap and that I really knew golf and was really into it and wanted to get in the golf business. I'm telling you, I know I never broke 90 at this point, and certainly never a legitimate score in any type of competitive event. But I was a quick learner and thought if I could get involved, I could do okay. Well, Palmer said, "Man, I just hired somebody from the San Diego Golf Academy." And it was a guy named Rob Noel. And Rob Noel now is one of the best teachers in the nation. And he had just been hired. But Palmer told me, he said, "But I heard there's a job opening at Metairie Country Club." So, man, I put my truck in gear, drove back across the bridge in New Orleans over the river, and went to Metairie Country Club and met the head pro there named David Matthews. They had a big event going on, and he said, "I'll give you a call." Told him I was a 5 handicap. Sure enough, 3 or 4 days later, he called, got on my answer machine. Went down there, bluffed my way through the interview, and got a job as a 3rd assistant golf pro at Metairie Country Club. It was perfect because I didn't have to know anything about teaching or, whatever. There was a 1st assistant, a 2nd assistant, and I was the 3rd assistant. So I was picking up the balls on the driver range, learning about gas-powered or electric carts and cleaning carts and doing all the grunge work. And it was great. I learned golf from the very bottom position, and then started working. But I knew I loved it, and it enabled me to play all the time, hit balls every day. The two other assistants, with Dean and Larry, would come out and help me on the driving range, wondering how in the world I got a job there. And I was like, don't worry about that, just help me. And so I still had that set of clubs that I got out the garbage can. And one day, David, the head pro, looked at my clubs and said, man, you can't play golf with this. And unbeknownst to me, he had ordered him a new set of clubs after he saw mine. And when his set came in 2 weeks later, he gave me his set. So my first set of real golf clubs that I played with were Ping Green Dots, the Ping I2s, and that got me on my way. But I hid my poor golf game from David. The first day I was working, I did not know basic terminology. I didn't know what it meant to play the ball down. I didn't understand why all the members played the blue tees instead of going up to the whites and different kind of things. But I kept my mouth shut, my ears open, and I learned some golf things, and I improved really fast because, I was infatuated. I was hitting balls every day, reading books, learning, ball flight principles, ball flight laws, learning concepts around the golf business, and just learning the golf business in general. And it was about 6 months later that David said, hey, Scott, let's go play golf. And I was like, uh-oh. So we went out and played the back nine. And I'll tell you what, that day, David had a bad day, and he shot 40, and I shot 39. So the only time I ever played with my head golf pro that hired me in the golf business, I beat him by one shot. He never knew that I had lied to get that job and that I'd made the whole thing up about being a 5 handicap. But I did, like I said, I did improve. And so I worked there for a year as a third assistant. Then I worked for a year as a second assistant at La Triomphe Golf Course, golf club over in Broussard, Louisiana, which is the home of the Corn Ferry Tour event. Many years. They discontinued a couple years ago. Robert Trent Jones Jr. layout, beautiful golf course, learned a lot there. And then I got to be the first assistant at the Country Club of Jackson with Ernest Ross, who was one of the first master professionals in the PGA. And I would say I did not learn a whole lot of good things at my first two jobs from guys that were the best golf pros, but I did learn what not to do. And then when I got the job at Country Club of Jackson with Ernest, I learned what to do because Ernest was awesome, an excellent guy, and wonderful to work with. I just can't say enough about Ernest Ross. But I was able to pass my playing tests, pass my PGA schools, and became a PGA member in February 1991. And then shortly after that, started looking around for head professional jobs, and there was a job opening at Palmetto Country Club in Benton, Louisiana, and there were 53 applicants, and I ended up getting that job, and I know a large portion of it was because of my experience and association with Ernest and the things that I had learned from him, which helped me so much. And Palmetto Country Club was a little private country club north of Bossier City, Louisiana, and it is the golf course where David Toms grew up. David Toms, PGA Champion Tour player now, also former PGA Tour player, won the U.S. Open and the U.S. Open in the Champions Tour. So, yeah, his father, grandfather, and he were members there, and it was a great little place to work. But it was when I was there, I owned the golf shop. I learned a lot about golf. I was doing everything that I had set my goals in order to do. I wanted to be a third, second, first assistant head golf pro. I had plans that I was going to stay there a certain amount of years and then move on and go on up the ladder. And my goal was to one day own my own golf course. And golf courses that are owned by PGA members are usually run better than those that are not. Let's just put it that way. But things took a tremendous turn, as that's when I found the Lord Jesus Christ. Of course, he wasn't lost. I was. And in 1993, God changed my whole life. And I left the golf business to go off to a Bible college in California and get a degree in Bible studies and theology. So I let my PGA membership go inactive for a while. And like I said before, there were times in my background, 37 years ago, I became a golf professional and also have 32 years of Christian ministry. There were times where I worked in golf and in Christian ministry together, and there were times where it was just one or the other. But you got to understand, even though I wasn't thinking about God in my decisions, God knew that one day I was going to be his and that I was going to be completely sold out to him. And it's just amazing to look back and see how he directed my steps. And there's never a time God is not aware or God is not with anyone, whether they recognize him or not. But the Lord's hand was on me. Long story, I left, like I said, that club, got a degree in Bible studies and theology. While I was in school, I was working at a golf shop, Nevada Bob's, I think it was. I then moved to Toledo, Ohio, after finishing Bible school, where I worked at a couple of churches part-time, worked with Charlie Immenecker in Toledo at one of his shops. He's considered the Mr. Golf of Toledo. And stayed always, interested in golf, teaching, but not as infatuated, obviously, as I had been in the past, because I really found out what my purpose in life was. Our purpose in life is not to become a scratch golfer or to play golf, but our purpose is to have an intimate, deep relationship with our Creator and to live a transformed life that gives Him glory, okay? But just sticking with my golf at the time, I was in ministry issues for about 10 years, but then maybe a little bit more than 10 years. But then in 2004, I reactivated my PGA membership, and I began to teach again when I was down in the Dallas area. And I was teaching full-time at a driving range, and also got a job at a company which is no longer around, but it was called Bogart Golf. And I was the director of instruction at an indoor facility when digital video was first coming out, and really got back into teaching. Then we moved up to the Boston area, where I helped pastor a church up there. And when I did, I needed to get a job, and I got a job with Dick's Sporting Goods. Dick's Sporting Goods used to hire golf professionals to manage their golf department, and I was one of 500 at the time. I worked at 3 different Dick's Sporting Goods stores. There was a point where I realized I did not want to pastor a church anymore in the traditional sense of ministry, and I resigned, and we moved back. I was outside of Michigan for 10 years. My wife was from Michigan, but we came back in 2009, and I was working with Dick's Sporting Goods, and probably, was going to retire with them until 2014. They decided that they no longer wanted PGA members and terminated all 500 of us, which was a wonderfully exciting day. And but I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the retail aspect. Of course, the worst thing is you don't have a golf course, but I only worked 40 hours a week, and I was able to teach around the side and involved with my girls and my family. I have 2 daughters that were born in Colorado when we were out there in various ministry positions. But to help and educate people when they came in the store, and we have the ability to fit them and talk about it, and then get lessons on the side. It was fun. It just, like I said, I miss the atmosphere of a golf course and the membership and that. But retail is a legitimate part of the golf world, and I respect and appreciate those guys that work in retail now. We already had 200 PGA members unemployed, and now there was another 500 that were all terminated by Dick's, and so it was tough to get a job. I actually sent out over 20 resumes and never got an interview, but the field was saturated, and I didn't want to move back to the South. My wife was from Michigan, so we stayed here. So I got out of the golf business full-time for a while and was doing other retail management, but still teaching part-time on the side at various golf courses. And then, things work out, and you look back again and you see the Lord's hand in your life. And unfortunately, my wife got breast cancer, and she's been gone now almost 5.5 years. And she passed away at only 45 years old. So I tell people my wife got to go to heaven early. And we were together a little bit over 21 years. And there's no way to get into the grief of losing a spouse, but that happened in 2019. And after she passed, I was kind of questioning what I wanted to do, and I wanted to do something ministry related. I wanted to do something that made a difference in people's lives, and the only door that would open was for me to get back into coaching and teaching golf, which is something that I realized when I entered into ministry, what I was really gifted at. My favorite thing to do in the world is teach the Bible. And if you have a spiritual gift, of course, it's going to transfer over into the secular world. And I think that's why I've been pretty effective and as a teacher and a coach in golf. you could say my philosophy is, or my goal is, I'm teaching golf and coaching golf in order to coach life. Now, I'm not obnoxious and I don't push my beliefs on anybody, but I would love to talk to my students, and I have. I've prayed with my students. We've had tears in the golf lesson. We've prayed on the putting green on the golf course, and it's great to help them in their journey in this walk, and maybe help them discover some things that are a little bit more important than the game of golf. But I worked my first year back in teaching and coaching, and that's when I became I got specialization. There's different classifications in the PGA. You become a PGA member, then you can become specialized in a particular field, and then certified, and then you become a master professional. And those can happen over time. But I wanted to further my education and my credentials, and so I went through the specialization process, and I saw and discovered a guy named Will Robbins who talked about coaching golf instead of just teaching golf. In other words, we want to try to pull out the ability that is inside of people instead of just giving them information. And he teaches on course in groups with guaranteed results. And so I stalked him for a few months and listened to the things that he was saying through YouTube and his own website. And then I actually employed him and hired them and enrolled in one of his programs where I learned the business of golf coaching. And it absolutely changed my whole approach. And so most of my instruction is done on the course. This is the game of golf, after all. It's not the game of golf swing. The golf swing is a tool which we utilize to move the golf ball. But it's not all about positions and points. Now, all that's you got to have a good golf swing, but that's just one aspect. Where's your course management? How's your short game? How's your putting? What are you thinking about on the golf course? I mean, there's so many aspects that, the driving range doesn't account for. When you're on a perfect lie every time and there's no pressure, yeah, you're going to hit good shots. But when you get on a golf course, we've proven now with technology, it's a completely different swing on the golf course than you make on the driving range. So why is it that golf is the only sport I can think of where we learn it off the field of play in which it occurs? In other words, we don't learn basketball in a swimming pool. We don't learn volleyball on a tennis court. It's the only sport where we're trying to learn it and we're not on the course where we actually play the game. And so, yes, we work on skill sets on some weeks, but every other week we're on the golf course learning how to play. And then I made a change in my philosophy of teaching, whereas I don't teach anyone unless I play 9 holes with them first. Why would I go out and listen to a guy that's shooting, 110? Why am I going to listen to him tell me what he thinks he needs to work on? I'm the expert. I'm the one that's been doing this for so many years. I'm the one. I mean, I don't go to an orthopedic surgeon to have surgery on my knee and tell him how he's going to repair my knee. But I do go to get an evaluation. And so my 9 holes playing with my students is an evaluation of their game. And then I put a game improvement plan together specifically for that student that we're going to institute. And over the next 10 weeks, we're going to guarantee you results. And so my average student the first year, I started doing on-course group coaching. My average student improved 17 shots over 10 weeks. It was amazing. I can give you so many testimonies. And so I've been doing that every summer since with great results and just having a wonderful time. I play more golf. My students get better. Everybody's happier. It's a it's just win-win for everybody. And I spend less time out there and more free time to spend with my family, teaching Bible studies, doing ministry things. So I cannot express enough how wonderful it is to be an on-course instructor that is really helping his students get better. So we did that at a golf course in Port Huron. I then had an opportunity to go back to Louisiana, teach at a privately owned golf course for a couple of years. God was directing all these things for specific reasons. And then my youngest daughter met a young man, got engaged, got married, got pregnant right away, and was going to have a grandson. And so I made a decision directed by God through his word to move back to Michigan to be with my daughters and my son-in-law and my grandson. So when I came back in September 2023, I contacted and met a guy that his family owns 2 golf courses in Mount Pleasant. So that's why I'm director of instruction at the Pines at Lake Isabella, in Mount Pleasant, right outside of Mount Pleasant, and also Riverwood Resort, which is right in town. I am certified with RGX Golf. I am certified with the Mind Factor Golf. I teach all my students about the mental approach of the game. We've got to be thinking right. We've got to have the right attitude. And there's so many things that we don't typically account for when we just focus on the golf swing. So I do spend a little bit of time teaching in the wintertime. We have 3 simulators at Riverwood, and I'm glad. And it's kind of I say in the winter, it's time to work on your swing and on your skills. But in the summer, it's time to learn how to play the game of golf. So I've had a various array of positions in the golf business, from third assistant to second assistant to first assistant to head pro, all at private country clubs. Then worked at multiple golf shops in the retail industry, worked at 3 Dick's Sporting Goods stores where I was the regional trainer as well as on the national steering committee. I learned a lot about retail, about merchandising. I did own my own shop when I was a head golf pro. Learned a lot about teaching and coaching and just all the different hats that we golf pros wear. Then got out of the retail and got into coaching and teaching full-time, which I've been doing the last 5 years. So I did have an opportunity also last winter to travel around and to speak at various PGA sections and on the way that we coach and the wonderful results that I've had. And that's been a great experience and an eye-opener to travel and try to help other golf pros become, coaches that are on course, enjoying the entire process more, getting out of the burnout, because there were days when I was teaching from 8 o'clock in the morning until 6, 7 o'clock at night. And about that second lesson, I was looking at my watch and wishing the day would be over, because I knew I was going to teach the same swing lesson basically all day long. Although I know it's different, people are different, but I also knew that it wasn't the most effective way to learn. And so when I was able to take that knowledge that I have of the golf swing, the mental, and then I'll go out and apply it on the golf course, everything changed. So here we are, 37 years ago, I got into the golf business. Love it. Would rather talk about golf more than anything else but God. That would be my first choice. And it's just a wonderful gift to be able to help people in the recreation that they enjoy. I know there's a lot of stress out there in life. I know there's a lot of pressure. And when we can get into a situation where we help people escape the pressure and also be a godly example and a good friend to them, just a wonderful privilege to help people with their golf game. So just a little short summary of my golf background. Tell you a little bit about my background. Again, I'm going to post in the links underneath this podcast a site where you can go and learn a little bit more about me on my PGA Coach website, and I do have some frequently asked questions there, and find out some more about my background as well as some testimonials there. In the meantime, if you have any questions whatsoever about your golf game or about the Bible in general, you can send me a text message through Buzzsprout, or you can go to the email underneath this podcast and send me a direct email or message. I'm glad to meet you and talk to you. I'd ask you to share. Again, this is only my 3rd time doing a podcast, so it's so much I'm still learning. But I do know that the algorithms like it when people comment, when people share, when people like, when people subscribe and follow. So anything you want to do to increase this algorithm is great and fine by me. And then, like I said, we're going to get into our regular format here in a couple more podcasts. I'm going to give you one more podcast with some background on my Christian ministry, with some other things about God that hopefully are helpful. And then we're going to get into some real meat and give you some things that are going to help your golf game and help you in your Christian walk. So again, this is Scott Weiss, your host with the God and Golf podcast, where Jesus is always first.